I'll set the context very briefly. Many of us who have joined in are not alien to the concept of neobanking. What does it really mean? We'll understand deeper. But as PwC FinTech team for last 5 years, as we are tracking the larger FinTech arena, the way we were looking at it, the opportunity as well as the need is really looking at what is the penetration of financial services in the country across CASA deposits, across credit, across investment and allied products. And wherever we saw, we could see the penetration almost in single digits. Even if we say that we have so many accounts open, the account activations have been tepid. So probably the problem as well as the opportunity, and that's where policy and commerce do intersect, is how do we increase the activation of usage of products? And so to that extent, we looked at fintech more as an underserved segment. So an underserved could be across, it could be a small business, it could be a gig worker, fluent, it could be someone earning even let's say 40 to 60 lakhs per annum, but feeling underserved in certain areas. So it's really all pervasive. Uh, and in last 5 years, again, we have seen models in payments, insurtech, a fair bit on investments, which have kicked off. So in that landscape, a neobanking is a new kid on the block, if you may. So with that, those opening words, I'll probably lean towards my panelists to get into conversation, and I'll start with double clicking on this concept of neobanking. So what does really neobanking mean? Jiten, if I start with you, you've been the chair of the SPC committee on neobanking as well as a entrepreneur yourself. So Jiten, how would you define what neobanking is?
Sure, Vivek. Thank you for inviting to the panel. I think, in my view, if you look at the word neobanking itself, this is like new way of banking. So it's kind of that's what the all the participants are trying to address. That we have seen banking today, which is more branch led, which is sort of more in person, and I think that has been an experience over last 25, at least my personal experience last 25 years, and last 5 years specifically, where the government has pushed a lot of digital payments, digital credit, digital insurance, and investments, and all of those segments, we have seen that customers' expectations have evolved and has changed both in terms of the product selection, access to the products, and the service part. And I think the existing banks or the incumbent banks, while they are catching up, but somehow their backend processes or the tech capabilities and all of that, I think there's a significant ramp up time which would be needed. So from that standpoint, I think the new set of or new generation of companies which are taking a fresh stab at banking and saying that let's think from first principle, what makes sense for the consumer rather than, hey, this is the regulation, this is the compliance, let's see how we can create the product based on the regulation compliance. I think these neo-banking companies, in my view, are inverting the whole dynamics, where they're saying that let's look what consumer need, create the product, and make that product regulatory compliant. So I think there is a big inverted approach which these neobanks are taking, which is in benefit of the industry because it sort of meets the customers' demand and needs, and second, also in the benefit of the larger access, because the digital nowadays can not be restricted to where your physical branches are, but can go across the country in a very seamless manner. So your experiences on banking would be very uniform across the country rather than defined by a particular geography and the people managing the geography. So I think that's how I see the big difference in the banking versus neo banking.
Very interesting, Jiten. Outside in view, inverting the dynamics, key constructs, and it's amazing as to how just one point of view can have such a big impact on what can get delivered. Focus on experience, some other key point that you highlighted. Anurag, if I move on to you, you have been in your business reimagining the card space itself. So how do you, what, how would, and you've been a banker yourself as well. So how do you Being a banker, how would you, ex-banker, how would you define neobanking?
Thanks, Vivek, and thanks for inviting me. Two things. I mean, just adding to what Jiten said. I think we are clearly seeing two big trends happening. One is, a massive mobile-first consumer base, and it just got accelerated in the last 3-4 years, especially after demonetization. Then COVID just accelerated that. So a lot of customers are using products and services across every industry, whether it's education, media, food, and they want everything else to become like that. And so that's one piece of the trend. The second is, of course, there is a massive push happening from both government and regulator to drive the you know financial access to everyone. So these two trends are actually the really big reason why we even talking about neo banking right now. Now, just want to clarify, neo banking, as you know, in current avatar is basically working with an existing bank to offer products and services which are more mobile and digital savvy and things like that. But I just want to correlate few things. And like in 90s, if you see, we kind of got the banking transformed from paper based to, let's say, technology based, where almost all the banks got automated their systems to replace the human and the paper, kind of made it more efficient. But I think the neo banking, if I have to define, is just think from a customer itself, that if every process has to be designed from a mobile first itself, how will you like go about doing it? It's not about automating what is already happening. I think that's a big difference. And as you said, I've been on the both sides. Some of the banks have really built good technology interfaces, and they're catching up. It's just that point is the consumer base today and the kind of push we're getting from regulator and the center to drive financial access. It just is the right time for us to do that. So that's how I would say. Basically, most of us are trying to start from a customer first perspective. Also, another point to add it, we don't have the luxury of existing customer base, unlike lots of other banks which have very large customers already. So we have no choice but to go after the new set of customers, and we have to really push our services and product features so well so that people opt for us. So naturally, there is a good, I would say, correlation between the two. Using technology to build products and services are more consumer friendly and more mobile friendly, particularly. So that's how I would like to define it.
While you're speaking, Anurag, I was just reflecting on one of the gurus of disruption, Clayton Christensen, who did one of the core of his thesis was that innovation will come from areas which are considered unprofitable by the incumbents or the majority, right? Probably that sets the stage for a follow through conversation on that. Anish, you and your team have been focused on similar area, but a very slightly different segment, and also segment around small businesses, which has been so critical to the economy. So, what's your take on how would you define new banking?
Right. So firstly, I'll just add to and Jiten and Anurag summed up really well in terms of the consumer preferences have changed, and at the same time, adding to that, a lot of things have changed in the industry as well. The entry barriers earlier, it was only very few privileged large corporation had access to the banking infrastructure. Now, through open banking or API banking or whatever we call, it got access to the smaller startups which can create better experiences. Thirdly, there is special niche focused opportunities or the gaps that always existed in the banking. For example, I was just reading last week about some of these neo banks, whether they would be successful or a bubble, which I'll know. There was neo banks focused on couples, basically for joint accounts. There is a neo bank which started for musicians. The LGBTQ community have started Daylight, which got started as well, right? So maybe there could be opportunity in some of these niche segments as well, which was not earlier taken. So this is how basically it has actually evolved right now. Now, coming to the needs of small businesses or SMEs, the traditional business banks, never fully solved the challenges they face through, because when somebody looks at business banking, they're looking to automate their business finance because your current account or business account is closely related to all your financial automation processes, right? So that's where if we can actually bring in the account payables, the receivables, the accounting inside your business banking, on one side it can actually help the entrepreneurs and the finance teams get back their time. Secondly, this helps the financial institutions to build innovative solutions around credit, because you get access to a lot more data and provide more value back to this SMEs, or even things like treasury management kind of things. So that's where globally on while consumer neobanks, there has been like huge uptake in the valuation side, but on the SME side, even though the valuations are less, but there is a the so on the consumer side, if it is the experiences what lead customers to neobanks, but in case of an SMEs, it's more about the need or the pain point that is SME neobanks were solving across the. So that's my take on the SME neobanking part.
Very interesting. I think probably in slightly an offshoot conversation on somehow the technology business and banking business, which in a regulator lens are two such different businesses. The debate is whether you would want them to be so different. Like as many of you are getting regulated or will get regulated, and suddenly you see what you can do with technology and that being prohibited. I'm sure that friction point will come. That's a slightly more broader conversation. Quickly, Ketan, your two bit on how would you see neo banking?
So as we say, neobank is a new way of banking. I feel it is a layer above the banking, and this layer takes care of the customer experience, what a consumer needs are. That specific needs are actually addressed through this neobanks. So basically, neobank is just a name, or I would say it's a wrapper. As I always say, it's a wrapper above the bank. This wrapper takes care of the consumer experience,
Sure.
and it can be uniquely focused towards SME or individual needs,
Yeah.
maybe addressing a lending need or a transaction needs. So we also have our Indian version of neobanks, which DCs are technically a neobanks
I was
where
thinking that.
people don't walk into a bank, but in a remote location, a customer comes to that touch point and does a transaction.
Right.
So that kind of systems were already in place. I mean, we started 2005-6.
Right.
So India has its own version of neobank.
Yeah.
Although neobank is said to be only digital, only mobile first, etc., etc. But I feel India already has seen this thing.
I couldn't agree more, Ketan. I mean, and I was feeling that as the trend became very popular, some of the folks who have been doing that job would have felt a little gypped, saying that "boss, ये तो कर ही रहे थे हम लोग," right? So
This happened with us most of the time because I mean we have been front-ending banks since ages and we are still not neobank. So I said let me confront it.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. But I do think the devil is in the detail, as probably the inversion of dynamics, which a couple of us spoke about. It's a small twist between product forward versus customer back. Probably the interface will give you the same, but it's quite amazing as to how a point of view can make all the difference. And I'm with you. We have been tracking some of the BCs like yourself, plus others who have been employing technology from get go, but not getting restricted because a fair bit of Bharat would require a phygital model, arguably, as we move forward. Riju, to get your view into it, how do you see the space?
Yeah, I think the neobank has been defined pretty well by everyone already. I mean, Anurag and Ketan mentioned, so that right now we have a mobile app usually that is, working on top of a bank, right? But we're probably just getting started. So where can we probably end up? So I think uh, at a larger level, we are probably looking at, unbundling of the bank or banking services and outside the bank of the bank, outside the box of the bank, right? So we are probably looking at all the banking services or financial services being presented on a third party app that is not the bank app. So the app may or may not be a fintech app. It could even be a WhatsApp, for all we care, right? And we are kind of getting a use case or a situation where the user can avail a credit card from bank A. They can avail the FD from a bank B, and they can avail a home loan from bank C, right? And they can kind of switch between various banks, get the best out of each bank, get the cheapest loan or the cheapest pricing with minimal switching costs, right? And minimal switching time. So that is, I think, the ideal situation where we would want to get, like, offer this facility for consumers, businesses alike, get the best out of all the banking services with minimum switching costs, and on a third party app, not necessarily the bank. So I think that is where we want to get, with neo banking as things, progress, right? Something that we are seeing in UPI as of today, right?
Yeah.
You can switch between your bank and UPI pretty seamlessly. So that's where we want to get.
Very interesting round of thoughts. Before I move to the next round, any reflection from anyone on what we have heard from each other? Does that trigger any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. See, what we have seen also in last 3 4 years, apart from whatever we all spoke, even for example, banks are also open to actually partner, because that's another important point. And I guess UPI would be the first one which actually brought this to the front stage, where earlier also bank partnership used to happen. Like Ketan was saying that BC has been a very stable and old model, but now we see this happening much more often and much more open. I mean, you can talk to many banks, and the most of the banks are looking to acquire customers and manage relationship through partnerships. This is also, I think, one of the trend which actually helped all of us to get where we are, or rather be positive about where we would be in future. And I would completely agree, UPI was a watershed movement, because suddenly you have a non-bank apps holding almost 90% of the volumes in the market, and that probably led to the fastest growth possible. Yeah.
Great reflection. Any others? Alrighty. So the next segment which I had was we spoke about it being a wrapper, and we can get into more debate about how long will it remain a wrapper and things like that. But what is the economics of this business in your view? And if I probably start with Jitain, you've just been into it. How do you look at the economics? And I'll go around the room.
So I think this is the most tricky question you're asking. Our investors keep asking the same question. So I think the way I look at it, it's not a very generalized thing in terms of what's the economics in the industry. It actually depends on specific entity's business model. So if I have to sort of worry about, let's say, or mention about our business model, I think we very much realize that the deposit amount of the customer does not belong to us, and that sort of sits with the bank, in the ownership of the bank. So bank has a full right to monetize that in form of the CASA deposits and the way they make NIMs and all of that. So we have to sort of realize our interest more on interchange or fee income, and then build the surrounding revenues around lending and the other fee income products. So I think net, if you ask me, if there are, let's say, 100 rupees economics which is there on a retail customer, earlier a bank was sort of monetizing the whole 100 rupees, and maybe in real sense they were able to monetize, let's say, 20. Now maybe the 100 rupees economics truly get materialized, but which gets splitted between the bank and entities like us. And so the revenue pool is increased, so there is no issue of revenue cannibalization. So the pool is increased, but at the same time, after the increased pool, it's sort of being split into the both entities. That's the way I see. But I don't think so there is any new monetization way, at least which I can anticipate in near future. I think all of these things one has to sort of iteratively discover in the journey.
It makes sense. I think I'll go around the room, but I was just referring to the report, Jitain, that we mentioned a little bit around what are the possible line items. One overarching thesis, and that's where probably the dividing line between whether a neobank will become a bank or will want to have separate legal entities and things like that will come to fore, which is it is now probable to create SaaS-based revenues. Because wherever we are going into the segments, they would require digitization, whether they're businesses or retail. Whether they would be ready to pay for that is another source of revenue. I do think a lot of innovation is possible in all the non-FS revenue streams, because if anyways you're working on the boundary and doing a outside-in customer need-based approach, there could be a lot of other non-financial revenue streams which can come in. Financially wise, I would think different shapes and forms of fee-based income will for sure continue, and that would be for every business to innovate there. Anish, to bring you in, what are the economics as you see it?
So, Vivek, I think both of you summed up really well. Jitain mentioning about on one side the challenges in the modeling as well as what you can actually expect out of it. And then you talked about the non-bank based this thing, right? I think there will be a lot of innovation some of these companies will try in terms of finding out the business model. Even though as Jiten referred to this challenges in terms of regulation, right? For example, the float income, right? Can we actually lend back the same float back to the same set of customers, right? There are, and I do believe sometimes regulations can go against or for the things as we get in the next few coming years as more and more of this entities set up as well, right? So traditionally it has been like the interchange revenues, the transaction fee revenues, and the only thing is that most of this are actually also going towards like a nil. So that's where like most entrepreneurs or companies has to innovate further as well. There are certain segments, maybe the subscription as a fee SaaS service may work, but it doesn't apply to every segment as well. For example, even in the SME sector, I don't think the micro SMEs would be willing to really pay for a subscription part of it, right? Even on the consumer neobank side, we have seen like internationally there is a subscription model, like the way the users today upgrade for a Zomato or a Swiggy for a certain premium services, people pay for it. Again, we need to see whether like the Indian audiences would be doing that. So, and the third part is like the marketplace part of it. For example, on the SME banking side of it, the non-banking related services, or let's say if a player is actually offering access to payroll or other third-party services, can we get a cut onto that, or build a revenue model or additional services onto that part, or building marketplace to connect between the SMEs on that side. Similarly, like can some of these neobanks turn as super apps as it progresses? Because very early right now, but that could lead to or creation of another model, because you have created an ecosystem of consumers and there will be a lot of brands or products which we wanted to actually address that part as well. So I think next 2 to 3 years it will take to fully evolve the models. A lot of players will keep on experimenting and come up with this models basically.
Super. Anurag?
Yeah, I guess both Anish and Jiten have anyway spoken, but I just want to add. I think what Jiten rightly said, that the current avatar of neo banking, it's a bank partnership model. So of course all the revenue stream belongs to the bank, and then there is a share happening with the entity, neobank entity. And I think the model is still evolving. We still haven't seen on a standalone basis. I mean, we have seen even in the BC side how the model has evolved. Over a period of large so many years. Even UPI was one of the first one where they defined the revenue structure for a PSP versus that upfront. Probably that was one of the use case. I think I would say right now model is still evolving, too early days, so we keep educating our investors to focus on potential rather than whatever is being done right now. Having said that, if we are able to crack stickiness with the customer, that means the extra value is being generated, which of course is available for sharing. So I think that's where the real thing is, that because banks are not, banks are anyway running their own targets. They are running their own quarterly numbers. They have their own business model to support. We add as a additional layer on top of it. So most of the banks see all of us as top of business. That okay, they have their own targets, and then we add up to that. So I think if we are able to crack the stickiness, which most of us are trying to do that, I'm sure the extra pie will be available for sharing. But in the current environment, it has to be all the revenues go to the bank, because the customer eventually belongs to the bank, and then it comes to us, something like that. So I think early days for us. That's where we are right now.
Got it. Riju?
Yeah, I think the points have been made. So, in the interest of time, I think everything is covered. So, I'll pass on this one.
Sure. Ketan, anything you want to add on?
Yeah. Like to say, the kitty of number of transactions are growing, and that will lead to increased throughput in the system. But to be very crude, we are riding on bank. I mean, the neobanks are going to ride on bank. So bank is going to be at the end of the day reimburse you or keep a margin for you, which currently they are saving to service a customer. That's the crude way I look at it, because that's how I've seen throughout my life. I mean, whatever they say, they will share. They are willing to share it with you. One. Second is the only money which can be made, and there is a lot of money on the table through cross selling, and cross selling will give us a transaction revenue. Or if you build in some value added services on it, which includes accounting or recruitment, etc., can add value, or a financial planning, etc., can add value to the entire neobanks, and that's where the money is. I'm sure most of them are working towards it.
Super. I want to just summarize some points. It was an interesting round because I could see everyone taking some notes. So clearly the fee-based income stream, value-added services, non-financial services. The one area which I thought I couldn't see anyone touch upon, I'll mention it and see what's the response from everyone is uh, different types of subvention models. Which could like finally we are in a business of moving money. So if you are getting the money to do something, I could argue a variety of loyalty programs could be structured around it because you're creating capacity for some consumption to happen, and someone should incentivize you for doing it. What is anyone's take on that?
So I think Anurag touched upon it briefly because if you're kind of creating a lot of value by creating supply, I think right, that's where you have the opportunity to get into specific agreements with banks, right? And then we've
So
seen that in payments. Yeah.
yeah. So Riju, so subvention model may probably a non-financial entity will reward you. So for example,
Mhm.
if you are doing a subvention which is let's say around hospital credit for hospitalization, right? So the hospital occupation is increasing. If you are
Okay.
doing something for travel, so
Got
finally
it.
you are helping that person spend money, which is a
Got it.
consumption lever for some other industry, right? So he's using that
Interesting.
money to buy something, uh,
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
right? So
could be Vivek. Only thing is,
Yeah.
we'll have to structure it through some other means. The subventions, as per regulation, at least in the when you're working with banks, have to be passed on directly to the customer, at least in the EMI sense. But you're right. We could do a lot of third-party services with merchants where we are because ultimately the transaction values both. One is it's valuable to the bank, it's also valuable to the merchant, and since we are controlling the interface, we can drive that. Also, we can also do a lot of cross services, especially around niche, like I don't know, forex is another example, very niche, services, and people, like especially around the payments, both on the acquiring side and the issuing side, a lot of confusion around forex in the consumer's mind and the merchant's mind. Fraud is another area. Can you do something around it, and all that? So, like PayPal entirely got built for fraud preventions or escrow services, which became now, of course, they do everything else. So, those rules are there, but I'm saying in the context of neo banking, as Jiten rightly said, right now in the current avatar, it is via bank. So it goes to bank and then we get back from them. Yeah.
So Vivek, I would like to add upon. These neobanks are going to sit on pool of customers, and based on that database, I'm sure it is going to create a huge lead generation and a funnel for other industries. Maybe it can be anything from travel to entertainment or etc. etc. Many use cases can be.
just a related point.
Sorry, just want to add to what Ketan said. BC industry has a lot of insights to offer. They started with cash withdrawals, account opening, fund transfers. Now they offer train booking services, mobile recharges, bill payments. Then, of course, cross selling of the loans. Like it's like the entire
Got it.
ecosystem has got AEPS services, micro ATMs. Some of them
I
were,
think the super app is
closed
right
garden.
there. Yeah. So the super
Yeah,
app is
every
right
yeah,
there that
that's
we're talking about. Yeah.
So we already
yeah.
aggregated most of the thing which
Yeah.
someone might not think. Doctor consultation, strange thing we have.
Maybe we should do a
I,
follow.
I'm just saying, if you look at cash withdrawal, was initially bank BC customer single, then came APS. Now, thanks to micro ATM, it become a fully interoperable product now. Actually, you can be a customer of one BC of a bank and you can withdraw cash from other BC and other bank, which was not the possible case like 7 8 years back. So I think the model is also evolving, and suddenly we can offer more services to customers and to the partners to make money. Yeah.
I'm just thinking that we should do a sequel report called "A Decade of New Banking in India," right? So, saying that this has been, but there is
So,
definitely some
so we
fundamental.
already had this neobank in the form of BC quite a long back. Even yeah,
So let
that's
me
it. I can say it's an Indian version because India has a different demography. So we had our own version.
correct. Correct. So I think I'll just mention this before I move to the next point, because we did mention UPI, but we didn't equate very clearly between UPI and neobank, and we've been talking about neobanking being like a wrapper over banking. But can you visualize a neobank which is completely built on an UPI architecture? Because it is giving you effectively let's say a democratized access across accounts, like an account aggregator model is there.
So
When we not get into partnership with a specific bank, but like I could argue that Google Pay is half on its way to almost start behaving like a neobank. You can open your FDs, you can buy gold, but that point didn't really come out. What is my fellow panelists' view on not on Google Pay, but on a model of UPI
No,
led
no.
neobank?
I think I think someone mentioned about Anish mentioned about a possibility of creating a super app. Someone like who has a large distribution can do that. But I think at least I can speak about a lot of us are trying to solve niche cases rather than a generic use case. And for us to go niche case, we have to go deeper. I'm like, we are not doing savings. We're only doing, lending product within that unsecured lending. So very specific use case. I don't know. Jitin can probably talk about because his is the most generic use case.
Yeah, no, Anurag, that's right. So I think the whole AA framework, in my view, is already going to force even the existing neobanks to rethink how they can provide better or leverage this infrastructure and provide the better experience to customers. Basically, how do you just not only provide a better experience to manage one account, but how do you provide the better experience to manage all the accounts of the customers? So I think this is a beautiful service which has been introduced by the regulators. And in my view, I think if anybody sort of claims that we will be able to think through all the use cases today, I think it will be too premature. So I think the best of that framework we are yet to see. But the first thing which I can visualize is that how do you provide a single view of all your finances at a single place, and give customers the ability to not only manage and through UPI network maybe make transfers, but derive some insights on the finances because of this unique ability. So yeah, so lot of innovation is going to happen in my view. And maybe, and this is my guesstimate, maybe the existing neobanks or the new breed of neobanks will think that do you really need to tie up with one bank to provide the services? So I think it's just open for everyone now.
Yeah, that was my leading. Anish, if I add one more item to it, I was broaching the topic of a neobank built completely on UPI, but similar parallelly, a neobank which could be completely built on PPI. You can withdraw up to a fair amount right now, 2
Yeah,
lakhs if I remember
completely
right.
agree.
Right. So, what is sorry? So that was another observation, please.
No,
Yeah.
so while Jitin was mentioning about it, I was also thinking like now, as this gets more democratized, which means like, a neobank doesn't need to partner with just bank, but there's a open framework, maybe like a UPI or an account aggregator framework. Then you will see actually more like the way we talk about embedded finance, non-neo banks coming up, right? For example, a payroll company could offer a current account and just things and like offer like the same way what Open is trying to offer as well, right? So this would, and this anyway, the world is moving towards that direction when we all talking about the open banking, embedded finance, etc. as well. I think this will all lead to that part where you will actually and even on the UPI itself, I do technically if you really look at like you can link your account, you can do payouts basically, right? So how can if we can naturally progress as well, this can even lead to what Jitin was suggesting as well, whether it happens through an AA framework or a UPI framework or some other things that we need to see. But India would see its own unique model of probably this neobank is what at least personally I feel like we have seen in other aspects of the financial services.
Very interesting. Any other
So,
reflections before I have the next query?
Vivek, I would like to say that what you're saying, I mean, the wallet will be at the center. Wallet is already now enabled with UPI handle. Most of the wallets are having UPI handle. And rather than signing up with a bank, one can write on a wallet, and the experience can be much faster and much easier rather than relying on a banking partner, because now wallet has cash withdrawals enabled, UPI is enabled, interoperability is enabled, KYC is easy. So all this ecosystem already is in place, and I'm sure we are going to see wallets now taking the seat of a bank.
It's always so cool to now back an underdog. No? So the wallet has suddenly become the underdog in a larger.
Yes.
Uh,
We used to
Yeah,
we ran the wallet since years, but now it has come in the forefront because we lost the initial race. Now we are in back in, and that's it. I can say we will be powering many neobanks with our wallet. That's what our vision is.
yeah, super, super. Anurag, you're saying something?
no, I was just about to say that 2 lakh balance limit is like a killer. I mean, it's like, almost cover 95% of the customers in the
Yeah,
country.
yeah.
And add to it a Ocean as well as, so I think in general, regulators are now looking at banks and non-banks together. I think they just allowed Aadhaar KYC to be allowed to NBFC,
Yeah,
which is another big segment which got opened.
yeah.
So big, you're right. I think possibilities are for us to think rather than the regulations, and the infrastructure is already getting ready. And Aadhaar is of
Obviously,
course one of the core thing. Yeah.
correct, correct. So the next pivot question, I know we have probably another 10 minutes of overall conversation time left. I want to move into another segment which we want to discuss, which is having spoken about both the economics as well as the larger opportunity. What are the challenges, right? And let's keep the financial, let's say, business feasibility by the side. It could be across. We have to discover, as Anurag, you were alluding to, everyone has to discover their product market fit, which can be its own expensive proposition. There's an aspect of dependency on the existing infrastructure, and many of those infrastructures also there is still some distance to be covered from a resiliency perspective. There's a whole aspect of regulatory thing falling between regulatory cracks. It could be any of those themes. If I this time move the other way around, probably start with you, Ketan. We've spoken about BC model almost being a early avatar of a neobank to now neobanking. So taking on your experiences on where would be the challenges and who has to work on it. And I'll go around the room.
So challenges I see, we need many integrations. I mean, we need banks to buy our concept. One, so banking system has its own time. One, we need lending institutions if we want to start lending. Either we build our own book, or we write on someone else's book. So again, there needs to be an integration. So we need financial institutions who can buy our piece. One, this is the biggest challenge. The first challenge, I mean, if you go to a customer, they will say, "Give me a service." If you go to a service provider, they will say, "Where are your customers? Get me some customers and then come to me." Or else you sign up with a very small, mediocre service provider which doesn't have the wherewithal to sign up. So I'm just giving you an example. If I go to SBI, they will say, "What is your base?" And if I go to a small bank, they will rather sign up with me, but they will not have the wherewithal to sustain me. So, biggest fight I think is here. And again, neobanks, if we keep on chasing the same set of 20% customers which are already banked, then there is a challenge. I think we should focus on the next 80% or the last 20 to 30, 40% of the sub base where there is a banking need. Then I think the customer acquisition cost could be extremely low, or else we will bleed heavily on the customer.
Great challenge. Finding one's own spot in the distribution chain with the right set of partners. Great challenge. Riju?
Yeah, I think. I think there is a lot of work to be done on the banking integration front. That's where I see big challenge operationally, right? Because the neobank or a neobanking enabler, we are basically connecting the bank to the customer as an intermediary, right? So money is made, in the integrations, right? How well you're able to integrate, what are your terms and conditions, right? And then actually managing the downtimes and the reliability issues. I think so that's a major challenge we see right now. And then there is the regulations as well that we can discuss separately.
Super crisp. Anish?
Yeah, I think I agree with Riju. The infrastructure is the biggest challenge over today because most of this, the new age fintechs or like the neo banking players, they are all dependent on an external, lot of external factors for giving that customer experience for which they are actually built this app basically. It is not for the customer experience part of it. But let's say, for example, if I had to actually pull in particular transactions data for a card product, basically, if say Anurag is building, and if you're not able to get access to that infrastructure from the bank, you get the experience skill, right? What this also means is that this actually is a big opportunity for some of the banks, like some of the either the small banks or some focused banks on providing this infrastructure, as well as the non-bank related infrastructure players as well. Right? I don't see the rest of the things are mostly, the product market fit. It all depends on like business model in the particular, startup. Even things like, those are like smaller worries. And even on a regulatory side, I think we have a positive regulator. So I think things are, even though we may feel that okay, a lot of things are restrictive, it's actually for the good for the industry as well. And we had always seen the in all the other things where the regulator how it has been, even though it takes time, brings that aspect as well. So in my opinion, the legacy infrastructure is the biggest challenge.
Interesting. And just a quick word, a lot of my work and my team's work is with the incumbent organizations. And we have seen the efforts being there through and through. I hope it will improve further. As you're aware, most of the banks have taken on API banking infrastructure journeys. They're still learning along the way. I do think many APIs are still built inside out rather than outside in knowing what a Anish or a Riju or a Jiten will ask for. But probably it's a journey, but thankfully they are on their way. That's why I was broaching the topic of UPI and PPI as well, because it also gives one control over one's destiny, if you may. Anurag, your
No,
thoughts?
I quite agree. I think everything has been spoken. I just want to add to that what you just said. At least there is a strong intent across all banks we speak, that they want to do it. It's just that from the intent to execution, there is a journey. And I think in our business, product market fit is something we have to solve. The banks can't solve. That's our problem to solve. But I think if you have to ask me, we are dependent on, key assets like KYC and all on the bank infrastructure. As long as the integration works, when they work, experience is beautiful. When they don't work, it gets broken. And we keep working, we keep working with banks to improve upon. But I can clearly see there is an intent to solve. Almost all bank partners we speak to, there is a clearly intent to solve because they understand that it's not they need this, and ultimately the customer would coming to us for the reliability and the experience. So I think that it's a journey. That's the piece to solve. Product market fit is more of our problem to solve, which is fine.
Yeah.
We will evolve, and thankfully we are. Unlike banks which are governed by quarter to quarter numbers, we are not yet governed by that. So we are more focused about product innovation, customer experience, and once we become scale, probably we'll also have the same issues, but not right now. Right? Okay. So that's where we are.
One of my friends who is a CIO in a bank was sharing thing that they've spent 2 decades of their life learning how to cater to all their what they call internal customers, and saying my life is so screwed right now because now half of my customers seem to be outside the bank and I can't even foresee them. Suddenly someone will come in to say, well, I need a partnership. So yeah, so it's a tough one for everyone to evolve. Jiten, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think while all other points have been covered, but from a regulatory side, the way I see it's kind of the current challenges are kind of an opportunity as well, if you ask me. So since there are no that's the challenges which I see is that there are no explicit guidelines around the partnership construct who has the customer ownership. There is these are the gray areas where bank use the arguments of customer ownership based on the convenience of winning the argument. And I think this is like when things are to be tackled. Oh, you are also the owner of the customer, so please make sure the customer is being treated properly. And so all of those things. And since there is no clarity, right? So it's arguments of convenience. The second thing is trust aspect in the customer's mind. I think the customers are still, in my view, confused in the sense that, hey, am I the if something goes wrong, should I go to a neobank for my resolution, or should I go to the final bank, and who's going to resolve it? And I think so. These are the things. It might be a real challenge, and ideally, like what we are doing now, which is this whole neo banking committee facilitated by FCC, the IMI FCC Council. I think in my view that has to sort of come together to form a self-regulatory aspect around that, how these situations will be dealt with, so that there is no mass issue which is being created, because we have seen enough number of times that if one player falters, the whole industry suffers. So it's better to be drawing few rules in terms of how we want to service the customer, what will be the resolution tax, how the at what points we want to intervene, at what point we hand over the issue to the customers and escalate to the banks, partners, and all of that. I think all of those need to come together to make it a very very effective business. Otherwise, this can sort of create long term can have a long term ramifications in my view.
Great point. I think we are almost to the end of our session, so I'll end it up with a buzzer beater round, if you may. A quick fire a question to everyone. 3 years down the line, what percentage of neobank's business would be by the banking business do you think we land up at? So 3 years down the line, total size of neobanking business divided by banking business, would it be 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, 100%, or more than 100%? Uh, Anish, why don't I start with you? It's a quick, it's a guesstimation.
I think it would be less than 10% in 3 years because it needs a lot more time basically to.
Got it. Riju?
So I can tell you, I would say around 5% because API banking, which is already there in the last 5 years, that is 5% today, right? So just going by that 5%.
Interesting. Anurag?
I think I'm gonna take a slightly longer shot, around 5 years, and I would put a number between 15 to 20%. But I just want to qualify that current avatar of new banking is all part of the banking, so the denominator is actually both.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Fair point. Ketan?
I think between 3 to 5% is the right number, which at the stretch, because our demography is quite healthy.
Yeah. Voice of reason. Jiten?
So, I'm a very optimistic guy.
Yeah.
And I was just reading a report by Economic Times survey where it says that 50 to 60% of young consumers are looking to switch to neobanks from the traditional banks. So, for sake of convenience and for sake of generating excitement, I would stick to that number.
Lovely, lovely. So I would also love to hear everyone's argument. I do think the tipping point could be near. I would have put mine somewhere around 20% plus, but good to hear the whole spectrum out there. While we ended, we started with the report launch we did between PwC and FCC. I do think a lot of aspects we covered is reflected in the report. We have touched upon what kind of business models make sense, what kind of regulatory challenges are there. There is a touch. We are connecting it to some of the broader trends we have seen. There are digital banking licenses which have come out in Hong Kong, Singapore, and few other geographies. That comparison is there. We've tried to include a couple of case studies. Part of this is educating as well as building consensus. As we could see from the conversation today, if this area has to pick up, then everyone from a regulator to incumbents to startups to maybe tech companies and probably also consumers, everyone will become party to the new ecosystem and everyone has to do their bit. That's what we have endeavored to do. Jiten, being a chair of the FCC Neo Banking Committee, has also been written a kind of a foreword to the report. Jiten, if I invite you for quick comments on the report, and we'll hand it back to Rishti.
Sure, Vivek. So, Vivek, I think the key summary of the report which I see is that yes, everybody is realizing that there is a need of digital banking at the core to service the consumers better. And I think in the current construct today, in the banking guidelines, the branch is at the center or pivotal to everything what a bank does, and that's how all the guidelines are being made. So right from the service aspect, somehow the branch has been centered around to service the consumer. And second is even from a geographical dispersion of consumers or access to the banking, the branch has been made a center point in terms of tier 2, tier 4, tier 5, how the branch or DC point should be there. I think with smartphone penetration, the role of the branch, in my view, is going to go down. So the guidelines need to be relooked at more from a end objective, which is how do you service better to the consumer, and second, how do you make the geographical dispersion irrespective, need not be through physical presence, it could be through smart digital presence, but still you have the condition of, let's say, pin code based geographical dispersion. And I think that could be the interesting way of looking at the guidelines. So that's the net summary which I would put as part of the report.
Thank you so much, Jiten. Thanks, Anish, Riju, Anurag, Ketan. Fascinating conversation. I hope the audience also loved it. Srishti, back to you. Thank you so much, IMEI, for pulling us all together. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all these speakers. It was an amazing session. I learned personally a lot, and I'm very, very sure that our audiences must have learned a lot. This report is available in the lobby for the download. If you want, you can download from there, and also available on the website of the organization and the FinTech Fest.